Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down to earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. And I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Hello, and welcome to Down the Garden Path. Thank you for joining me here today. Today, my guest is Jazmin Albarran, and she is the executive director of Seed Your Future, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting horticulture and inspiring the next generation of leaders in the green industry. With over 20 years of experience in youth development, outreach, and mental health, Jazmin is passionate about creating opportunities that empower young people and showcase the diverse career paths within horticulture. Welcome to the show, Jazmin.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here to share a little bit about us.
Yes, I'm excited to learn more. Did a little bit of a chat beforehand, but why don't you tell me a little bit more of Seed Your Future?
Teacher Future was started by several horticulture professors that realized not enough students were coming into the horticulture industry. They realized that the BAs, the masters, the PhDs are important for this industry. It's a very science industry, right? But most people don't think about it when they hear the word STEM. They think about engineers, pharmaceuticals, but not necessarily plants. You know how much of that is here, right? And so, as
Mm.
true academics, they did several surveys, several phases of research to really get to know what they needed to build to help the horticulture industry. And so, phase one was getting to know from industry what the needs were. Why can't you find staff? What kind of help do you need? Phase two was a telephone survey across the country asking the general public, what do you know about the word horticulture? And what are your perceptions of the industry? Well, that's where we realized not many people knew what it meant. And two, their perceptions were negative. They said that this industry, you can't make money, there's no professional growth, it's not professional compared to being a doctor or a lawyer. And they talked people out of coming into the industry. Phase three was talking to students and asking them, similar, what do you know about the word horticulture? And then also, how do you want to learn about those careers? So, all those years of research then created Seed Your Future. We target our resources to middle school students and beyond, high school, college, university, and then also some of those career changers. So, providing a variety of tools for career exploration depending on what stage of life people are in.
Wonderful. And this is a national organization based in the US, but like you were saying, all the information is there regardless of what country that maybe want to use your tools, right?
Definitely. The website is open. Anyone that is curious about what a horticulture job is, what the industry is, they're welcome to visit the website. We have a directory with 147 different career profiles. And those profiles are careers that touch plants directly, but there's also drone technician, soil specialist,
Oh,
writer, artist, business owner. We want students to know that regardless
yeah.
of what their passion is, they can too find that. The profiles also include information about salary ranges. There is information about do you need a certification versus a PhD. There's also a video that describes like a day in the life of that so that people can get a little glimpse at what that job does. So nice well range of information. We also have a database with scholarships to help pay for higher education because we know it's not free. And then we also have a database of internships. So once you get into college, explore some of those businesses, right? Explore different roles to really figure out what your dream plant job might be.
There's so many more than people realize. Really. I mean, even a landscape, I think of all the artists out there, they never would think of landscape design, right?
Hmm.
And me as I didn't really have a science background, I just had an interest in plants and was amazed at how I could remember things, like, because I liked it, I could remember. I could remember that name of that plant, and I could remember that it grew in the shade, but yet I don't remember what I did at work the other day, you know? So I was like, "This is kind of interesting," and it was a little bit of navigating. Now this is 20 plus years ago, of finding my path. And I
Mhm,
did start off working at a garden center, which I know you mentioned that earlier. I totally recommend for young people. I think starting off at a garden center is a great way to learn. And the thing is too, when people, it's not. I think some people might think of it as retail, but
mhm.
when people are buying plants, they're really happy.
Oh, yes.
Right? When women are buying jeans or a bathing suit, so happy, but they're buying plants, they're very happy. So yeah, so it is, and I've worked in a flower shop too, and I've often got that about, "Oh, must be so great to work in a flower shop," and it's like, it is, but it's like buckets and buckets of heavy, you know what I mean? The flowers are all in really heavy buckets of water, and
Mhm.
and I know that's kind of also horticulture, right? But something with
Yes.
plants and flowers. Whereas a garden center, yeah, there's still some heavy lifting and depending on what you're doing, but it's a great way to really learn and I think it's a really good gateway into the industry.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mentioned florist. Is that part of the program at all?
Absolutely. We cover anything that is related to plants. So the
Okay.
turf, floral industry, the trees, bushes, every plant we want people to understand the difference between the segments, right? Because they all have their own supply chain and different business leaders. But yes, absolutely. We bring all of those to the forefront.
Yeah, and I think there's so much behind the scenes that the average person, just sees the plants on the shelf and how it got there, how it got in the pot, how it looks so healthy, how it has a tag, you know, uh, trees too, right? Like there's so much that is involved in growing trees. And from grafting to all the different types of trees, right? Evergreen, deciduous, fruit trees. There's so much to learn. So I think it really is an exciting industry. And I think there's a lot of people that like the idea of not necessarily sitting at a desk, right?
Right,
That
right.
that you get to now I feel like I have a bit of best of both worlds doing being a landscape designer in the sense that I do have quite a bit of outside time. And then it's mixed with, definitely computer time and designing time, and that's where my sit stand desk comes in handy so that so it's kind of a cool career from that standpoint is that I do get a bit of both. Um, yeah, but I think there's so many other wonderful careers that I've gotten to know over the years just by visiting the growers and visiting the wholesalers and seeing that everything that goes into getting the plant from the grower into my client's yard garden.
Mhm. Absolutely. And there are some jobs where you're never going to touch a plant, but being immersed in this industry with the people, it's like you said, it's so different. Being around plants impact your physical, mental, and emotional health.
Mhm.
Working in a place where people love what they're doing and love the products they're with, well, it's just amazing. And people are very fulfilled professionally and have long life friendships. I've talked to people all the time. I'm like, why have you been here 20 years, 30 years, 40 years?
Yeah.
They all say the same thing, the product and the people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an industry. Now that you say that, I think of yeah, the my mentors and the people that I learned from 20 years ago, a couple of them have just retired, and they were, let's say, mature 20 years ago when I started out there. It definitely is a career where there's a lot of longevity because I think people do love what they do.
They come and they stay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can see that. The other aspect is not just the ornamental. So, because I'm a landscape designer, I'm dealing with ornamental and residential. There is also commercial installations and commercial projects. There's the advanced education of going to be a landscape architect. I think
Mhm.
people learn about architects. and building buildings and things like that. But I don't know that everybody, especially students in schools, know what a landscape architect does, with our public parks and our public green spaces. And that's so important right now, don't you think?
I agree. And one of the things that we do, because we know that Seed Your Future has created resources for educators to have conversations with students about horticulture careers. We can't expect a teacher to talk about an industry they don't understand or they don't know about.
Yeah.
So on our website, we have 25 career exploration lessons that tie a science subject to a horticulture career, making it easier for that teacher to be able to talk about those careers in the classroom throughout the year, which is a part of our Seed to STEM program. That was the lessons from 2024. This year, that Seed to STEM program is bringing English, math, and art teachers to Chicago with the lens to be able to see, get to know turf, get to know floral, ornamental hort, public hort, see the similarities, see the differences. And then those teachers will also create a lesson for other teachers to be able to download from the website to have those conversations. So we're equipping teachers to be able to talk beyond a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, right? And so that they can now bring these wonderful conversations, these careers into their classroom for their students.
Wonderful. That I love it when we don't reinvent the wheel, right? When we kind of create something and then we can pass it on to be used so that not expecting everybody to, start from scratch.
Absolutely.
Do you now I also think about the food movement right now and the grow your own food. And the movement here in my community, a larger community, I'll say Ontario, of something called flower farming, or I mean farm, because it's harder for people to grow a farm or get a farm, right? Buying into farming is a harder
Hmm.
industry to get into that's very regulated. But flower farming or vegetable gardening at a larger scale, that type of thing, I feel is just booming. It's going to start to boom. I think when we start to look at more greenhouse growing, that type of thing. Have you noticed um, interest in that area?
Definitely coming out of COVID, I think people were wondering, like, one, well, where does my food come from? Why is it not on the shelves? And I think the scarcity pushed a lot of people to think about, okay, I want to grow some of my food, maybe just some of my veg or fruit. And so people
Yeah,
have been exploring, like, okay, it's not just throwing seeds on the ground and expecting them to magically grow. It's a science. It takes time. It takes the health of the soil, how much water and light, and then, of course, it depends on the plant itself, what it needs. But yes, I think more and more people are exploring that. And we tell students all the time, there's not just farming in rural areas. Urban farming is a thing. You can have a pot with
yeah,
cherry tomatoes on your porch. If you
yeah,
have a windowsill, you can grow something, right? Even if it's
yeah.
just herbs. It's just getting that start into what does that look like can lead to a passionate career in the future.
It really can. Yeah, I think so. And even the flowering, so it's not food, but it's flower farming. I mean, some at the, with a large yard and, I knew of someone who in the city, she was in Toronto and she literally would use other people's unused yards for planting her flowers.
I love
And
that.
isn't that great? And so the neighbors agreed to do it so they could get some flowers, but they also had to do some watering when she went during the hot
Yeah.
hot part of the year. But when you think about an urban space where everybody has tiny yards, so she only had so much space at her yard, so she was able to talk to, friends and neighbors who were not really using their yard and could care less about the lawn, and so she was able to turn them into gardens. So talk about innovative thinking,
That
right?
is so amazing. I know,
Yeah.
one of the big conversations around is pollinators. So,
Mhm.
can you imagine similar if everyone took a little piece of their land and planted some flowers to be
Yeah.
able to make those house and the food for all of these pollinators? We would make such a huge impact on their growth.
Yeah, we really would. And I think just the awareness, putting so that people see it, if everybody did, even if it's just one plant, right? Like you said,
Right.
you know? Um, so I think things like native plants and bees have certainly been in the spotlight for a few years, and I definitely see the food being more interested in growing your food and where does it come from. Yeah, and then there's the whole indoor, inside house plant situation, right? And I'm seeing, living walls, there's green
Mhm.
roofs. It really, I guess I could just keep listing careers for you, but you're aware of that. Um, I think it is really great that you are, encouraging the businesses to connect with kids at that age. I notice on your site you say you have a plant power career quiz.
Mhm. We do. We created that because even if a student and a person, and while the quiz was created for students, we have adults take it all the time. So really, anyone can take it. But it's
Yeah,
meant to give ideas of what careers you might be interested in based on how you take that quiz. So knowing that you love to be outside, you love plants, you love nature, well, how does that translate to a paying job? And
yeah.
so that quiz narrows down that list of 147 careers to 10 based on how you take that quiz.
Oh, very interesting. Yes, money is always the kicker at the end, right? Especially for young people's parents, probably.
Yes,
But knowing that there is available careers that make a living wage, a good wage, is probably beneficial as well. I know I was mentioning in our chat beforehand about Longwood, and I was able to visit there a few years ago with a garden tour, and was so impressed by at one, Longwood was breathtaking, and, so was Chanticleer as well. We got to visit both in, Pennsylvania, but the amount of people it took to run something so efficiently, and so also there is, like you said, event planning, tourism, dealing with the public, like, there was a lot of factors that go into making that place so special.
absolutely. Think about the membership careers. Think about all of the volunteers that are helping, the
Oh gosh,
restaurants
yeah,
on site.
yeah.
It's a whole city in itself. And all those careers are needed to make sure that it can run so efficiently. And someone has to curate those flowers and plants. Has wants to plant them. The irrigation has to be well enough for them to be able to live and be happy and be beautiful, right? So it's hundreds of careers coming together in this one place to help this public garden truly shine as it does. And most of the time when someone is coming to Longwood Gardens and other public gardens, they're not thinking about the careers, right? They're coming to be and embraced in by the plants. But we
Yeah,
want people to see Longwood Gardens as an employer and the
yeah.
variety of careers that they have. Because again, can you imagine being able to work there every single day? Oh,
I know. I know. And I, as someone who's in the industry and travel, I make a point of seeing a botanical garden in another country or another city, or visiting a place like that, visiting a greenhouse. Even my husband now will like look into what's nearby for me,
what's
kind of
around?
thing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so it's not as much as um uh you are about North America or about nationwide in the US. It is Horticulture is a worldwide thing, and I think that's
Absolutely.
something for students to realize too, that it could be a career that you travel with as well, right?
Definitely. So think about Longwood Gardens and all of those installations. All of those
Mhm.
plants, flowers are not from Pennsylvania. They're not just from America. So there is a job that has to visit Thailand, that has to visit South America, see what plants are living there, what conditions keep them happy and well, and then figure out how to bring them back. Absolutely, you can work and travel as much as you like in this industry with depending on the career. Think sales. There are many horticulture companies that are in several different continents, so learning how to sell in different markets, different conditions, different types of plants, that helps you travel around as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, my mind's just how many longwoods, like I use that as an example because that was fairly recent, but there's places like that all over the world, right?
Oh, hundreds, yeah.
That need good qualified people that love plants. And even more, like you said, it's not all about plants. The industry is bigger than that, right?
Right.
Yeah, and even landscape design, I know, I have a good friend of mine where we live kind of close together, and she's also a landscape designer, and so we collaborate a lot. We work together, we bounce ideas off of each other, but we're kind of in the same geographic area, and people, contractors and other people will say, "Well, like, isn't she your competition? Like, like, why are you guys so?" And we're like, you know what? There's way more houses than there are that we could do. Like, we're better together, right? So I don't think you can have too many people because there's only so much time in the day.
No.
Um,
And I've
you
heard
know,
so many people in the industry use the word frenemies because, yes, we're competitors, but they come together on projects to ensure that the success of the industry comes first. So you'll see competitors that are planning an event together, that are part of tours together, just because they want people to understand, again, the value of these plants, value of their companies, and getting more people buying plants and also coming into the industry.
yeah. And I think it also keeps, it's important because things keep changing. When I started, climate change really wasn't on the talk, 20 years ago when I started. But I know in working in the industry for this long, plants that weren't hardy 20 years ago, they were basically an annual or they never survived our winters here in Ontario, now are they totally survive our winters. Some of them are even now invasive because they're too happy with the warmer winters and the warm changing climate. So it's one thing that it's also a career that's kind of evolving to external factors and really an education to really help us learn what's happening with plants and in the horticultural world.
Yeah, 100%. These breeders, like you were saying with climate change, have to figure out how do I grow the same plant in a place where it's either getting too much water than before, not enough water, or the climate itself has changed. We still got to feed people. We still need plants for clothing. We still need plants for oxygen. So, how do we make those happen with the ever changing landscape of what climate is looking like now? And so, yeah, breeders are busy trying to figure that out for us.
Wow, yeah. Even being able to be resistant to insects,
Yes.
that type of thing. There's so much, and that to me is so STEM, right? Like you're really breaking down and getting into those technical things in science when it has to do with plants, because plants bring, like you said, soil. There's a whole issue, a whole thing about soil, compost, turf in that science, as well as the insects,
Yeah.
right?
Our board
And
president is an entomologist. So we
ah,
absolutely know the importance of having them at the table and a career that's equally important for the survival of plants across the country and across the world.
excellent. Now you have the fifth Green Career Week coming up, March 3rd to March 7th. And it's a nationwide movement, like we said, about connecting students with green careers. So tell us what do you have planned for this week and how we can spread I can spread the word here on Down the Garden Path about Career Week.
Well, thank you. So Green Career Week is an effort to get students connected into careers within ag, horticulture, floriculture. Um, it is super important more than ever for these students to realize one, these careers exist and what they do. They're vital, as we said, right, for the health of our soil, air, and water and our environments. Green Career Week is exposing what this wonderful world that has been a secret is, getting in front of students who are the future customers, but then also future employees. We're asking industry professionals, regardless of what job you have within the horticulture industry, to set up field trips, bring students to your sites with the career lens. These are the careers that are planting the plants, growing the plants, marketing, selling, transporting the plants, or go into a classroom and do a presentation about who your company is, what are the jobs that you have, how do students apply? Do you have any internships? We want students to know and become aware of these local businesses and their own community and again, see them as employers.
Right. And you mentioned internships. Do you also have like apprenticeship programs at all? Like, is that something that's kind of a trade? I know that's something in Ontario. We've got some work going on in that horticulture technicians and kind of an apprentice program.
There are several businesses that are starting those, but in the States, internships is something that's a little bit more prominent. On the
Okay.
Seed Your Future website, we list national internships that students can apply to. They're listed by the area of study, who's providing the internship, and then also listed out by state because we know some students want to be able to travel for their internship and some want to stay closer to home. So we're always thinking about how do we present the material in a user friendly way so that students, parents, and educators can find these jobs, these internships sooner than later.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's almost like you're kind of having to pitch to the parents a bit, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, like you mentioned earlier, yes, you want your child to have a living wage. And because all they see with an industry is the person cutting their grass, or they have that perception of the farmer in overalls from like the 1950s, that's what they think about horticulture. And
Mhm.
so, yes, we have messaging for parents and showing them, look, these are the diverse salaries, diverse careers, diverse segments. And after they see all of that, then they're more comfortable with letting their students have a BA or whatever that might be within the horticulture industry.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, I think, just because we're recommending starting at a garden center to get exposed to a lot of different things in one location doesn't mean you're going to work at the garden center forever necessarily,
Right.
right? I think it's a good gateway to learn what you love. It helped me learn that I wanted to do design more than I wanted to do something else. And so, yeah, so I think it's a good gateway. So, and then I went, and it's very much, I think that's what drew me to the industry was the growth ability. So yes, I started at a garden center, and then I was, started as the cashier, and then I started in annuals, color blocking and patience and things. And then the more I learned, and I always joke about this back in the day, now with cell phones, this doesn't happen, but back in the day it was walkie talkies. So somebody would ask a question, and then the experienced people would say the answer, so then it's like education, right? Like, I'm learning. So I was one of those people that just kind of like, oh, that's how that grows, oh, that plant will be good for that spot, right?
Yeah.
So I learned, Larry, I learned so much from him through the walkie talkie, right? And then I learned that they offered me to do in store. So I was started in the nursery, then selling plants to people. And then they needed someone to do in-store design. So, this is back in the day
Mm.
too, where people brought in a 4x6 photo and some measurements, and you had to like suggest some plants to them. And I had already started a landscape design certificate part time while I was working at the garden center. And mostly I started that just to learn more about plants, because like it was a 6 course program, certificate program, and 4 of the 6 courses were on plants. So after I did the 4, I'm like, well, I might as well finish it, right? And do the design, learn the
Yeah.
design. So yeah, and I just went from doing in-store designs, and then their outside designer left and they offered that to me. And so it was really a gradual
Yeah.
gateway, and you never know what's going to happen, right? And so going to designing for a garden center, I did 2 different garden centers for a number of years until I was ready to kind of go out on my own. So, and I could have worked for another company as their in-house designer. There's so many. So I'm using landscape design as one type of, where, you start, and here you start at A, but you didn't know that you were going to end up at J, right?
Right. And the amount of networking that can happen, right? You could be talking to your future boss in 10 years at an event. You just don't know it yet.
Yes.
So, being a part of networking, being a part of organizations and associations to help build your professional network is really important as well because it's that connection to the people that can tell you, "Hey, this position is coming up." And again, loving the work, doing the work will get
Yeah.
you in the door. Those connections help you find your next job, right? Getting tapped on the
Right.
shoulder because someone knows your skills, knows what your passions are, can
Yeah.
help that trajectory, like you said, go in a different way that you might have not thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even cities, like think of all the communities that have gardens and public spaces. They all have city workers that have to know
Right.
horticulture,
Right.
right? Yeah, we could just list all the jobs, but I'm sure your website has even more information, and I'm excited to check out the toolkit as well. I mentioned to you Landscape Ontario, so I'm here in Ontario, Canada. Landscape Ontario is our body that kind of helps educate. So there's a lot of programs that they have. So I'll definitely connect the two of you
Thank you.
as well. I was on a course this morning learning about what they're calling fusion landscaping, which is landscaping for water mitigation, for floods and managing water on everybody's property. Type of thing. So yeah, there's so much science and math that goes into it too. So that
There
was
is.
always my weaker point. But the math strong people, you could do very well for sure, for sure. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I just want to make sure that your listeners know that Seed Your Future is out there. We have a variety of resources to help connect anyone that's passionate about plants to a potential career. We are a resource and we want to be here. Horticulture is more than a hobby, it's a business, right? And so we want more people to acknowledge that.
Yeah, it definitely is a profession. I mean, I think that we need to start calling it what it is. It's a profession
Hmm.
and it has
Hmm.
many facets that you could go, that you can be a part of. So I'm excited. You can tell I'm passionate about my industry very much. So I was so excited to be able to talk to you. And I think it's great to get to kids younger and get them thinking about it. So that's wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me here down the garden path and sharing all about Seed Your Future and Green Career Week. So everybody, March 3rd to 7th, and I will have your website and all of the other details in the show notes for our listeners as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So visit seedyourfuture.org. And if anyone has questions, they can email us info@seedyourfuture.org. Happy to answer any questions, make any connections as needed.
Excellent. Well, there you go. Thank you very much for joining me down the garden path, Jasmine. I'm really excited, and you can tell, like I said, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff too. So it's nice to meet somebody else who's pretty passionate about it. So I hope our listeners enjoyed it and learned something. And please check out seedyourfuture.org.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Bye for now.